Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and every once in a while there's a product release that adds a feature to a long-running product that just goes, how wasn't this already a thing? And that's what we're about to see today. This is a game-changing debugging feature for Visual Studio. And if you're wondering how long Visual Studio has been around, well, it's actually not as simple to answer as you think. But Visual Studio as a product has been with us for a very long time. Now, this is confusing. Microsoft's first release of Visual Studio was Visual Studio 97, back in, well, 1997. And then they started calling it Visual Studio 6, and then they started going back to the years again. Again, like I said, Microsoft's branding for products has always been a little screwy, but Visual Studio itself has been around since 1997. But it doesn't really end there, because Visual Studio was actually a rebrand of Visual Basic, Visual C++, and so on, all bundled together. So if you go to Visual C++, it actually started life. Well, you go back to Microsoft C in 1983, which, by the way, Quick C was actually my very first C compiler, so I do have a fond place in my heart. But the first version of technically Visual C++ was released in 1993. So we're talking several decades here, and this feature was just finally added. So what we're looking at here right now, this is the preview release of Visual Studio. It was just released about half a week back. And what I'm showing you, this is some C++ code. This is a little simple raylib example, and I'm going to show you a change that has happened to debugging. So let's say, for example, I wanted to debug this simple project. I want to debug my initialization code. So maybe I'd set a breakpoint here. Well, you would never do one right after it, but I'm going to set another one here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit my debugger, and then boom, I hit my breakpoint. I am good to go. So now I could navigate through my scene. By the way, the command for next is also the same as stop recording. So I'm not going to use the hotkeys here, but that is, ladies and gentlemen, how debugging works. So I'm going through my initialization code. You could do it that way. Now let's say I want to also do my loop. So I want to handle inside of my main game loop, same thing. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to debug again, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. I hit my my initialization breakpoint. So what you would normally do at this point is something like disable those breakpoints and then continue on. So boom, now we are inside of my loop. Well, this is where the new functionality comes in, and this functionality is it's incredible. I can't believe that this didn't exist already. So here we have our initialization. So let's enable those back on again. What I can actually do, so we're going to open up the breakpoints window. I've already got it open down here, but you can also grab this via debug Windows breakpoints like so. And what you're going to notice here is I have all of my different breakpoints here. So I got this one and this one at line 13 and 15. Those are my initialization breakpoints. And here's my main game loop breakpoints. Well, what I can now do is I can come in here and go new breakpoint group. How is this not already a thing? This is insane. So what I'm going to say is init. So this is my initialization group, and I'm just going to basically grab the two and put them in the initialization group. Now what I'm going to do is create another breakpoint group, and I'm going to call this one game loop, like so, and I'm going to grab my two breakpoints from outside the game loop, and I'm going to drop them in there. So now let's say I want to debug my game loop. So I want to skip over the initialization code. I just go here, I click this little checkbox off, and boom. Now we're just going to hit the game loop breakcode. This is a game changer. It's so weird that breakpoint groups didn't exist already. So now what you can do is you can set up breakpoints all through your project, and none of this having to go through disable them, click through them, all that. You basically just handle them as breakpoint groups, and you are good to go. By the way, you want to get rid of a breakpoint group. So let's say I no longer need to handle this initialization. I can delete the entire group, and all of those breakpoints are gone. Actually, I just deleted the main loop, but you know what I mean. This is just so overdue. If you're a Visual Studio user and you've done some debugging, you're probably going to look at breakpoint groups and go, how wasn't this already a thing? By the way, this isn't all that is actually new in the 17.6. Again, this is in preview right now. We've got other things like Git upstaging, braced pair colorization, IntelliCode API usage examples for C#, visualize support for .NET remote debugging, an Unreal Engine log viewer, Unreal Engine code analysis, HLSL tools extension, MAUI tooling for ARM64 devices, remote file explorer for Unix, and then we've got import C or C++ embedded something. And then we've got CMake Debugger. So you can actually debug your CMake files, which is something useful for me because I suck at CMake. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, again, they did a documentation. This is why I just became aware of this yesterday, where they talked about this new Breakpoint Groups feature that was added into this release. So this is Visual Studio 17.6 Preview 2, which you can download the preview and you can run this side by side with your existing Visual Studio install if you so wish, but this will work across all of the various different languages. So TypeScript, C#, C++, etc. can all use breakpoint groups. I'm not going to really explain how they work because I literally just showed you how they work, but it's just going to make it so much easier to organize and work with breakpoints. Again, I can't believe that this feature took 3+ decades to be added to Visual Studio, but I'm happy that it's here. On top of that, again, the preview is out there. There's a bunch of things coming with it. So it supports C++20, comes with .NET 7. It's got an improved IntelliCode in there, a bunch of IDE improvements, enhanced debugging improvements, and so on. So if you want to get into the full release notes of Visual Studio 2022 17.6, I will link them in the linked article down below. So this is available for download in the free version, the professional version, the enterprise versions, etc. By the way, alongside this, just literally yesterday, if you're using production Visual Studio, there is a patch for it as well. So this is only available in the preview version at this point in time, but there's no way this feature doesn't make it in because this feature it should have existed since the very dawn of time, and I can't believe it didn't already. And I don't use a lot of other IDEs, so I don't know if breakpoint groups are like a ubiquitous feature across other development tools. Let me know if they are, or if this is just one of those things that we strangely just overlooked. And again, this is one of those things that literally across my career would have saved me hundreds, possibly thousands of hours. I just, again, it's unfathomable that this didn't exist already in Visual Studio, but it is here coming soon, and it is just A+. It's nothing really complicated. Again, it's just a new menu for the most part. Boom, create new group. Right here, you also have the option of only enable when the following breakpoint is hit, so you can make it conditional, so you can have the entire breakpoint group conditional on an existing breakpoint being hit. But it's just really solid functionality that, again, I'm staggered it took so long to get here. So let me know what you think. Also, if you've encountered breakpoint groups in other IDEs, do let me know if this is just Visual Studio late to the party, or if this is just for some reason something the industry overlooked. All right, let me know. Talk to you all later. Goodbye.